Hi, and welcome to Divorce on Planet Earth, Kate Scharff's real-world advice for well-intentioned humans. And now, here's Kate.
Hi. Today we're going to address the topic, you're getting divorced, do you really need therapy? I say really because I know that not everyone is a fan of therapy. Lots of folks come from the pull yourself up by the bootstraps school of life. Others have had bad therapy experiences in the past and are understandably skittish. And many people simply have never had the need for therapy. But I do end up encouraging most of my divorcing clients, even the skeptics, to seek supportive therapy during the period of their separation and divorce. And there are reasons why I do. The first of them is that divorce is overwhelmingly stressful. It just is. It always is. In fact, it's widely considered to be the second most stressful life event that any human being can go through, second only to the death of a loved one. So even if you're the initiator of the split, and absolutely, especially if you're not, if you don't want to break up, divorce is going to turn your life upside down. It's really a before and after event. It really is the pulling of the tablecloth off of the table and it's cutlery and plates and glasses flying. I have never had a separating or divorcing client who didn't experience some version of roller coastering emotions pretty much every day. Sometimes, from minute to minute. Even people who are relieved to be getting out of a marriage that they have been unhappy in for a long time, or an abusive marriage, are often surprised to find how much anger and sadness and fear and anxiety they grapple with, even along with the relief. Questions like, am I going to have enough money to retire? Is my husband going to punish me for having been the breadwinner by claiming that I worked too hard to have the kids living with me or spending overnights with me? Will I lose all my friends in the divorce? Will my family see me as a failure? Well, I see myself as a failure. A good therapist will listen to and validate your concerns, but in a way that will help you to feel less worried about them over time. The second reason I recommend therapy to divorcing folks is that it's really hard to function when you are overwhelmed and stressed. Most of my clients report trouble concentrating, especially at work. Lots of people worry about losing their jobs in the first several months or even year of their separation and divorce. Lots of people have trouble sleeping, or they sleep too much. They have trouble eating, or they eat too much. They find themselves going to psychiatrists for medication to relieve anxiety or insomnia when they're really not even the type to seek medication for such things. And by the way, there is no shame in that. This is a situation that calls for whatever relief is available to you in a way that you might not need at other times of your life. And for parents, it's really an ongoing struggle to keep their children's needs front and center, or even to just get the meals on the table when they're feeling so much in the eye of an emotional cyclone. Some people don't actually feel much sadness or anxiety, but they feel kind of manically revved up. These are folks who find themselves doing impulsive, self-destructive things that they normally wouldn't do, like drinking and driving or sleeping with a new person every night. These manicky, impulsive behaviors are surprisingly common ways of avoiding awful feelings. They're just sort of the other side of the coin. A therapist can't take away your feelings, but can help you find ways to manage them so that they exert less power over you and over time do begin to lessen in intensity. Here's another reason I recommend therapy. It is really tough to make decisions when you're overwhelmed. One of the hardest things about divorce is that even as your emotions roil, you're pressured to make a lot of really big decisions about really important things in a really short period of time. And it's pretty hard to keep your mind at the negotiating table or the mediator's table when all you can think about is how much you're going to miss your kids this weekend when they're away from you for the first time, or how you're going to hold your head up high at your first solo back to school night. A therapist can offer you a space that is safe in which to calm your mind so that you can begin to think more clearly. And here's another reason that I recommend therapy. Friends and family are just not enough. Sure, you can and should talk to close friends and family members that you trust, but friends and family have a way of saying well-intentioned but ultimately unhelpful things. They can minimize your experience with platitudes like everything happens for a reason, or a year from now, you'll laugh about this. They mean well, but these kinds of sort of empty attempts to make one feel better end up making us feel worse. Friends and family can also bash your ex in a well-intentioned way with comments like, I never liked her anyway. It might actually feel good to you in the moment, but it does minimize your loss, and it can be humiliating. It's sort of like saying you married someone below you. It's not good to hear. But mostly friends and family are just too close in. They get anxious. They have their own agendas. They are protective of you, and their anxiety might heighten yours, especially if they encourage you to try harder to save the marriage or to act aggressively toward your ex, to second guess your lawyer's strategy, or if they express a lot of worry about how you and your kids are going to manage going forward. And in the end, they can never be there for you fully. While the divorce is probably all you think about, or certainly a big preoccupation, even your loved ones will get worn out if it becomes the topic of every conversation. And remember this too, friends and family cannot be relied upon to keep things confidential. They just can't. Okay, so we've covered the main reasons that I do think therapy is helpful for most people going through divorce. So let's talk now about what kind of therapy you need and how you might find it. I mentioned earlier that I recommend supportive therapy for people going through the crisis of divorce. So what is supportive therapy? Well, actually, any good therapy is supportive, in that the therapy listens and comes to understand your feelings and concerns and accepts you non-judgmentally. But when people seek therapy under what I will call ordinary circumstances or ordinarily bad circumstances, they're doing it because they want to change something about themselves or, disrupt some repetitive behavior or set of thoughts or feelings. These are folks who need a therapist, not only to accept them non-judgmentally, but to try to help them understand the historical roots of their present day psychological difficulties. If you're seeking to make profound personal change, you are going to need a therapist who can challenge you a bit, who can help you to stretch by sensitively pointing out some distortions in your own perspective and offering new perspectives. But right now, at least on some days, it's all you can do to put one foot in front of the other. So now is really not the time to try to understand all the big whys. You might think that you're supposed to do a deep therapy dive right now, and there are a lot of reasons you might think that. You might be asking yourself some big questions like, why is this happening to me? Or if your spouse is accusing you of being the problem, you might imagine that if you can figure out what you're doing wrong and change, you can actually prevent the divorce. Or maybe you're just scared that you'll repeat the mistakes of your marriage in your future relationships. Or maybe you just can't believe that your spouse is doing this and you're desperate to understand his or her motives. But here's the problem. When you're overwhelmingly stressed, you're not in the frame of mind to develop new important insights. That kind of work is hard, really hard. I mean, by the time we're adults, it's making profound personal change can feel like chiseling away through concrete. This is really not a time to pressure yourself to go rooting around in your unconscious. It is not possible for you to develop new and profound understandings or make big personal changes. It's a time to get through the days as best you can. In the future, yes, it will be important for you to figure out how you got here so that you can avoid recreating the dynamics of your marriage in your divorce or in any future relationships. But there will be time for that soon enough. Right now, what you mostly need is someone you can trust who can sit with you in your pain without becoming overwhelmed by it in the way that a family member might, who can accept and support you without judgment and can accept without supporting, but at least accept non-judgmentally the darker parts of you, the parts that you are ashamed of, maybe the part of you that fantasizes about causing pain to your ex, even though you intellectually know that's not a really good idea, or the part of you that is ashamed to admit that you want them back even though they had multiple affairs. Okay, so how can you find a good therapist? Here I would say trusted others, friends, family members, clergy, medical doctors are really good referral sources. But these days I recommend that you also do some of your own research, even if you're researching a name that you got from a trusted source. Check them out online. Most people these days, most therapists do have websites. And when you're checking them out, not only should you sort of get a sense of your own reaction to the words on the page, how they describe themselves in their practice, but pay particular attention to whether or not they list their training and experience. A professional degree, like an MD or a PhD or an MSW, is important. A licensed degree is important, but it's mostly just a ticket into the field. So responsible and serious therapists know enough to do training after graduate school. So look for people who have done additional training in psychotherapy and have been in the field for a while. I know money is likely to be an issue, especially during divorce when resources are tight. But if you can avoid it, try not to limit yourself just to the professionals in your insurance plan. There may be someone good there, and you can always run the list of in-network providers by someone who might be in a position to identify a good name for you. But it is a limited list, and it's worth knowing that some therapists work on a sliding scale or will consider reducing their fee if you really need it. And be sure to check out what out-of-network benefits you have, because you might be pleasantly surprised that you would be eligible for reimbursement for perhaps a large chunk of your therapist's fee. You might also consider stretching your budget a little bit for the right person, at least to get you through the rough early stages. And if you can't do that, someone who has come highly recommended but whose fee you can't afford probably knows other good therapists and might be able to recommend someone with a lower hourly rate. Now, I do want to address the common and I think important concern that a lot of folks have, that therapy might be used against them in their divorce. Maybe you're one of these people. Maybe you think your spouse might raise the specter of therapy in custody negotiations, or if things go that far, which they rarely do, but could, that they might use that therapy as a weapon against you in court. So I recommend that you do ask your attorney if there's any risk to you of being in therapy while you negotiate your divorce. In my experience, with rare exceptions, very rare exceptions, attorneys want their clients to get the emotional help they need to navigate the divorce less painfully. They know that therapy helps divorcing people think more clearly, so make better decisions during the divorce process, and to parent better. And that's good from both the emotional and legal perspectives. If you'd like to read more about how to find a good therapist you can afford, how to know if you've found a good therapist, how to know if the therapy is working, and answers to lots of other therapy-related questions, please check out my book, Therapy Demystified, an insider's guide to getting the help you need without going broke. You'll find it wherever books are sold, including on Amazon, in print and electronic versions. Till next time, remember, divorce is hard and you are only human. So do your best, forgive yourself when you screw up, apologize when it makes sense, and remember, it's okay to spend a weekend binging on Haagen-Dazs and reality TV.
You've been listening to Divorce on Planet Earth, Kate Scharff's real-world advice for well-intentioned humans. You can follow Kate on Facebook and Twitter at Divorce for Humans. That's at Divorce, 4, Humans. And if you have any questions or show suggestions, Kate would love to hear from you. Send her an email to info@divorceonplanetearth.com. That's info@divorceonplanetearth.com. And also, please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and get notifications about Kate's latest episodes. Thank you for listening.